This has taken me a very, very long time to actually get to a point of saying, okay, let me do my biography, whatever you want to call it. I want to call it my life library because there is so much to tell. You know, when I go and I testify and I'm invited to speak at places, then I just speak about what God has done in my life. And it's such a big combination that I said I'd like to make a movie out of it one day, because for one person to experience so many things, I don't know about you, but I think I've got a life history of things that very few people have been through. Maybe you've been through some great things as well, some scary things, some challenging things. Maybe you need to do the same. Maybe you need to tell your story. I'd like to share my story. Getting back to why I'm doing it now is because I've tried it many a time, and I thought it would be appropriate if I do it in an audio form, and then somebody can help me to put it into a transcript and put it into a book form, and we can print it. Put it as an email, as an ebook. But you know what? I got to tell my story. It's, for me, as a human being, I think it's a wow. My life is not the same as many a person on this planet. But I'd like to share with you. And maybe you'd like to take this journey with me and hear my story. Or stories, should I say. So if you're interested, send me an email on Esther Badenhorst 24, and it's in the number 24 @gmail.com. And yeah, let's see what comes out of this, how God is going to reach the nations with my story. Hope you enjoy it. I don't know where I'm going to start, and I don't know where I'm going to end, so let's just go for it. Maybe, hopefully somebody out there will just hear and say, we need to make a movie out of this, maybe a series out of it, who knows. I might not tell everything in chapter 1, obviously not, or chapter 2 or 3, or wherever I end up, but let me just start. I'm not going to have it in sequence. I'm just going to start where my heart starts. My biggest testimony I've got to start with is basically how God called me to physically prayer walk through this nation, South Africa. And the ridicule that came with it was very difficult. I salute the man. I was married to him at that stage. I salute him for walking the walk with me, because he didn't get the assignment. God gave it to me. And I think it's very difficult to actually make an assignment yours when you haven't heard God's voice. I mean, look at Mary. When she was pregnant, she had the assignment to bring Jesus into the world. She was the mother. But Joseph had no part in it. So he had to actually get an encounter from an angel, a visit from an angel, to convince him. Listen, dude, your wife is pregnant, but she's not sleeping around. I could just put myself in that picture, how it must have felt. You know, we read all these Bible stories and we make it so smooth sailing, but put it in today's time and see how would it have affected you if it was your relationship. Yeah, so coming back to the walk, it didn't come straight away. So for those that really want to know what faith is like, it's so true about that mustard seed. Faith is like a mustard seed. You just got to have that little bit of faith. And a mustard seed is it's minute, it's tiny. But it's not only faith. It starts with hope. Because if you're hopeless, you can't have faith. And that's what God has taught me, and that's what He embedded into me is, Esther, speak the truth always. And when you speak, bring me, that's Jesus Christ, Yeshua, to the people. Present them with a package deal that they will want as well. So my package deal to you is my life story, and I hope it can change your life. Maybe you're going through some difficult things. Maybe you need healing. Maybe it's your body. Maybe it's your physical. Maybe it's your finances. I have seen everything. Well, I think I have, and I've experienced a lot of stuff. There are things that we still need to go through, maybe, because God knows we need to. And not maybe, but we all have to. He chisels us. He molds us like the clay and the potter and the clay. So my biggest change in life came about in 2004. It could have been 2003, because 2004 I already had to make a drastic choice. It could have been earlier than that. I'm trying to remember the dates, and if my dates are a little bit out, I'm so sorry, but I wrote all these beautiful things down, and one day in Pretoria the Lord said, you haven't written your book yet. Get rid of all your stuff. And I was so devastated. And yeah, so I've got to try and remember things, and hopefully I remember the years. If I don't, I'll put a plus minus. But going back, I was brought up in a family with 7 children. Now, can you imagine that your dad is working, your mom's not working, because mom says, dad says he didn't want her to work. So whatever the story was, we grew up very poor, very, very poor. I remember when we had to go for athletics, I needed to have spikes. There was no money for spikes, no money for running shoes, no money for bus fare to go on these trips. So if you don't have money, you can't partake. And so I lost hope. And I just want to tell you today, don't lose hope. Because even as a child, I knew I had to hold on to whatever hope I had in my life. I didn't know then what it was, but it kept me going, and that was because I loved Jesus. We were brought up in a very godly home. Many unusual things in the family that you sometimes wonder, is it a godly home, is it a Christian home, or is it not a Christian home? Because we were always arguing and fighting in the house, and that didn't make sense to me. So I had a lot of questions. At the age of 18, I decided, once I finished school, I will leave home. And so I did, and I went on a mission. But not to go into that mission just yet. That will be at a later stage in my story, wherever it's needed. Because I'm an open book. I don't worry about anything that happened in my life, because it's going to help somebody. I was a tomboy when I was young. I think it was the survival mechanism that I needed to have. To survive is what was buried in me. But when I was at school, I was a different person. But at home, I was that tomboy that wanted to do the boys' thing. So when I got older, I didn't like sitting with ladies and talking about booties and cookies and tea and cake and this one's husband and that one's brother and that one's aunt and that one's sister. It never challenged me. But if we were at a braai, I'd always land up talking with them, or just even if I was not talking to them and I was listening to them, and I was enjoying their conversation because it had more richness to me at that stage. And then the Lord came in, and that's also another story for another day, but he came into my life, I think it was about 2002, 2003. that my life started to change direction. And the Lord said, you're going to serve ladies. And I said, excuse me? He said, you are going to minister to women. And I said, that's going to be interesting. God knew He had to bring the Esther balance into my life. I didn't know the Esther story that was coming, that would unfold in my life in the future. But God had it all written down. I understood the David portion in my life. Climbing on the motorbike, doing what the guys do. I didn't like wearing shoes when I was younger. My dad called me kufut because I didn't like shoes. I didn't like wearing bras. I remember when I was forced, you got to wear a bra. I hated every minute of it. And because it's not comfortable, why don't they make something that's comfortable? So as I grew up, things in my life happened. And if you look at your own life, if somebody says to me, how do I know what's my calling, Esther? How do I know what my purpose in life is? Then I say, look at when you were a child, because you've got a fingerprint. And your fingerprint will expose who you are. You've got to relate to when you were a child, relate to when you're a teenager, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever age you are. Slowly you will see the pattern and you will know this is who you really are. I'm not going to go down that road, not now. I want to bring you into my biggest testimony. I physically prayer-walked through this nation from the north to the south. That's about 2,000 kilometers by foot. Many people would say, Esther, how long did it take you to walk? And I said, God gave us 9 months to do it in, but we completed it in 8 months. Could have done it shorter, but that wasn't how it was going to work. You know, God has strange ways and interesting ways how He gives you the opportunity to do it in that time period. If you finish it before the time, don't put judgment on yourself and don't think, well, why did I do it so fast? Just enjoy the journey, and that's life. Enjoy the journey with Jesus. So we did the prayer walk through South Africa. But let me help you with that. People will think, oh, but that was easy. It was the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life because I had to believe in myself. I had to believe in God who asked me to do it. I had to believe that I heard Him correctly with all the naysayers around me. And there were many. There were many mockers as well. I don't know if you can relate to anything in your life that you're going through. Maybe you want to be a politician and everybody says, oh no, don't become a politician. What's going to happen? You're going to waste your time and blah, 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 blah. You know, your fingerprint, nobody can tell you to be. God has written down a most beautiful story of your life for you. All you must do is open up the book and start to write the journal with Him. The story of your life. And you will see it will unfold. Don't be in a hurry. But you need to pursue your purpose. What was my purpose? I didn't really know because I went into accounting, I did bookkeeping, and I studied. I didn't finish my studies then. I didn't finish my studies, and then later on, you'll hear in my story as well that I studied further, and I studied my BA in political leadership and citizenship. And that was the Lord asking me to do it. Coming back to this prayer walk, we walked on the N1, and the stories that I have to tell you, there were some good days and there's some bad days, but never ever did we get mugged, hijacked, spat on, cursed, none of that. But what I had wasn't from the enemy. What I had, that we're talking about the N1 now, what I had was the behavior of the church people. The body of Christ, if you want to call it that. I've never seen so many different thought patterns about what God asks you to do that doesn't fit into the structure of the everyday life. I'll give you an example. I was asked, why do you walk so far? Can't you sit in your room and pray? Do you have to do it that way? Another one would say, you'll never ever get far. I mean, I had even somebody that was in my family, not my family member, but somebody married into my family that said, we won't even make it to Makadu. Then it was called Luistrichel in those days. I made it to Cape Town, and it wasn't easy. And I wasn't being challenged to finish it. I just knew every day I woke up that was what God said we must do. It's like something came over me that was more powerful than the world can ever imagine. It was the Holy Spirit, that's for sure. It didn't just happen by chance. God spoke, and we carried it out. I walked 4 pairs of shoes out. Oh, and before I forget, I'm thankful for this load shedding, because now I can do my audiobook, because now it goes for 2 hours, 4 hours in South Africa, and you've got absolutely nothing to do. So tonight I had a light bulb moment. Esther, you can do your story for the world to hear. Coming back to the prayer walk, it was the most interesting time in my life. 4 pairs of shoes. The different towns that we would come across, that we had to walk in, walk through. I would know before I get to the town, if I have a lot of blisters on my feet, I would know this town needs serious prayer, because there was a definite onslaught on that town in the spiritual realm. That's what it was. In the beginning, didn't really notice it, and later on I did. The biggest onslaught in my life was when I was coming to my own hometown, where I was born, Polokwane, Petersburg. That's Petersburg was the name. Interesting, isn't it? I remember going to a doctor to say to him, listen, I don't know, I have a problem with my feet, and Monday I have to start walking again. And he said, ma'am, you're going to have special shoes made. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, where do you think I'm going to get time to have special shoes made, let alone find the money for it? God doesn't need special shoes. He just needs a special daughter to go and walk. So can I tell you what I would do when I had blisters like that? God would give me a light bulb moment, and he has since then, always. It's been an awesome walk with him. Have you ever walked 16 kilometers and maybe even more with a pair of socks on your feet? I took the inner sole of my shoes out. I would put them in the inside of my sock, and I would walk the kilometers I needed to walk for that day, just like that. You must remember, this is hard, straight, flat. There's no sponge, there's no cushion on your feet. You're walking. Do you think by any chance God had prepared me as a child? Do you maybe think for one moment God had me ready long before to say, my daughter, your feet are very special. Shoes. I didn't like shoes. Remember I told you? I didn't like to walk with shoes. Nicknamed Koevoet. Now, if you know who the Koevoets were, and I'm not going to bring it into the story, you can go and do some homework for yourself. Who were the Koevoets? If you have a look, and they were special people, if you have a look and see, when I walked through the nation, I had to walk sometimes with the sole of my shoes inside my socks, and walk the distance that I needed with my socks. They didn't get holes in them. Not while I was walking. My feet didn't get damaged. On the tar I would be walking. Interesting. On that hot tar I would be walking. We had winter and we had summer seasons when we walked through the country. God carried me, and God will carry you. You are not alone. If this book is just meant for you that's listening to my audio, stand still and thank Him now for what He's done in your life, what He's brought you through. Doesn't matter what you're going through now and what you're going to go through in the future, but thank Him for how He's brought you this far, how He's brought you this far. My blisters would go as quick as what they came. Sometimes it took 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it wasn't very pleasant to have them on your feet. But I learned many ways of walking when I thought I could never walk. I remember, and as I said, I'm not going to give it in sequence. I'm going to give it as the Lord's giving me the story. I remember Nylstrom. The Engeheer Dominee asked us to please give our testimony. And so I did, and I remember saying, whoever wants to walk with us, you're more than welcome to meet us the next day at our spot where we're going to start your walk for the next day, because we always put a cross up, a marker up where we ended the day before. And then we would go back to that spot and we'd start walking from that. We had no backup vehicle, nothing, no support vehicle. We would hike where we finished, stop walking, we would hike back to the town before, or we would hike to the town ahead, depending on where the accommodation was. And so I'll share that with you just now about the logistics for the accommodation. God is faithful. But in Nylstrom, it was just amazing how Satan will attack you, and you've got to stand your ground. Now, you remember my feet with the blisters. I couldn't stop walking. I had to walk because that's what He called me to do. And I had to believe that He will heal me, and He did. Now, Nylstrom, I was telling the people, testifying and telling them that when I walked in the beginning, when I started to walk, my knee started giving me trouble, my right-hand knee. And I said, I will not accept this pain. I am walking for my healing. God called me to walk. I'm not going to stop. And I kept on praying. I kept quiet and I just walked with the pain, and God healed me. It went away. I didn't even notice sometimes that there was nothing wrong. But in Nylstrom, when I gave my testimony, Satan didn't like that. The enemy was very fierce. Because the next day when the congregation decided they're going to walk with us, guess what happened? I had such knee problems. And I said, Satan, you're not going to come and embarrass me. I'm so sorry. Get off my knee. This is my knee. You won't lay a hold on my knee. And I started walking and praying. Nobody knew. I just walked and prayed. And God took me through that. That knee pain went away. If I can help you today, don't give up. While you're going through your stuff, keep on praying. But you have to have a sound mind. You have to renew your mind daily. I say minutes, every second of the day, you've got to renew your mind so it can become more like the mind of Christ. We cannot be Christ, but we can be His child. I hope this is helping you.